Hey guys, it's Nate from BikeCo.com. Want to do a quick video on how to properly change your brake pads. This one actually has one extra step that some of our previous how-tos didn't have. I ran these brake pads all the way down, well past their wear limit, and when I went to change them, the standard steps to re-gap that didn't work, and I needed to create some additional gap. So hopefully this helps out some people who may be in the same boat where your standard butter knife trick isn't creating enough space to insert the new pads. So for this project, you're going to want whatever brake fluid you have. Don't mix and match brake fluids. Use whatever's spec'd for your brand. You're going to need a tool to open up the bleed port, whatever tool you need to pull the pins out to replace the pads. I like to have some extra Windex around to clean up, rag. And you're going to see some long needle nose pliers. Those will come in a little later in this video. So to start out with, you're going to squeeze the brake and you're going to make sure that all of the pistons are moving equally. If they're not, you're going to need to reset them so that they will. Once you know that the pistons are moving equally, pull the bleed port screw out. This is very important because when you drive the caliper or the pads into the caliper, you're going to displace a lot of fluid. That fluid, if you don't have the bleed port open, is going to stress your master cylinder. It can pop the master cylinder. So you see here I'm using the butter knife trick and I'm driving the pads and the pistons back into place. You're going to see the fluid coming out of the lever. Again, always open the bleed port. So from there, again, I'm using the standard knife trick, but because these pads are so worn, I just don't get enough gap to really work with. And from there, I'm going to have the problem of how do I get the pistons a little further back in? Well, keeping the old brake pad in the caliper, I use a set of long needle nose pliers, and that allows me to drive the pistons back into the caliper. Be very careful. You can chip. Your caliper is made out of very lightweight material. The pistons are made out of not only lightweight, but high heat resistant, very brittle material, which is why you want to use the old pads to push on rather than risking chipping your pistons, which are going to eat seals and negate brake performance, possibly even to the point that your brakes won't work. So you can see once I've made that room, the brake pads fit in fine. I go and repeat the procedure here on the front. You could pull the wheel out for this. For me, I was just being lazy. It's one less step. I'm not sure long term whether or not it would have been faster to have pulled the wheel out or not. But again, you'll see that when I pull these out, there's not going to be enough space until I've used the needle nose pliers and driven those pistons back in. I replace an old pad so I don't touch the piston. Also be very aware don't do this right after you've had a greasy lunch. Don't do this after you've worked on something else. Your brake pads and your brake rotors are very easy to contaminate. So you want to make sure that your hands are clean and dry. And try to touch the pad as least as possible. Try not to touch the pad, the surface that's the contact surface at all if you can. And avoid touching your rotors the best that you can as well. So you see the last piston here, reset that in. Once that's reset in, I can go ahead and drop in the larger new brake pads. They go in really easy once the pistons are all the way out of the way. Just put the spacer pins in just to keep them located, or locator pins. From there, I'm going to engage the brake a couple times, make sure that I've got motion on all four pistons. Then I'm going to brake and hold it and slightly tighten down the caliper. This is a quick way to center brakes. If all the pistons are moving equally, this works really well, particularly on the Magura brakes. So the brake's centered, it's working well. I'm going to go back and I'm going to slowly tighten the forward and rear bolts one at a time after I do the locating pins, apparently. So this caliper is snug down, but it's not torqued down per se. In order to bring it up to torque, I'm going to go back and forth between, in this case, the forward caliper mount bolt here. Put a little bit more tension on it. Then I'll go to the rear, a little bit more tension. Back to the forward one, a little bit more. Back to the rear. And you're going to bring it up to torque that way. And it's going to give you the best alignment that you're going to have access to. So hopefully this helps out some riders. If you get stuck on a brake pad installation, this might be one of your issues. And we look forward to helping you out on some different stuff down the road on BikeCo.com.